Hello and welcome to Wheels Boy. For the longest time, the only Chinese car you could point to and say, that's a sports sedan, was the Lynk & Co. 03 Plus. But that seems to be changing, thanks to this, the GAC Empow. The Empow is definitely down on power compared to the 03 Plus, but it's also way down when it comes to price as well. In theory, then, it seems to be a affordable front-wheel drive sports sedan in the vein of something like a Honda Civic Si. Can it actually deliver, however? There's only one way to find out.
With hands-on test drives and reviews of exciting Chinese market vehicles, Wheelsboy is the #1 source for China auto insights. Be sure to check us out on Instagram and Facebook.
When it comes to the exterior styling of the Empow, I would say it fits somewhere between the boy racer style of the Lynk & Co. 03 Plus and the slightly more conservative look of a Honda Civic Si. It definitely doesn't look like a standard sedan thanks to these giant, mostly faux air intakes with carbon fiber finish and gold trim. This particular car is a top-of-the-line model and comes with this, I think, kind of awesome matte green paint job. Overall, I think it kind of threads the needle between a little too conservative, maybe boring, and then a little bit too over the top and attention-seeking. This is a car that you could drive to the office and still be taken pretty seriously. The roofline of the Empow looks much like that of probably 5 or 6 other sedans that I could mention just off the top of my head. This seems to be a problem in the industry today, but I will say that most versions of this car do come with these very handsome 18-inch alloys here. I love the look of these. We also have a very cool carbon fiber looking rear spoiler, though not quite as cool as the one of the 03 Plus because it doesn't say downforce on the side. I'm assuming that's what it's for, but again, without written instructions, I just can't be positive. Coming around to the rear, we also see quad exhaust, kind of presumptuous for a car that is a 1.5 liter 4-cylinder, but hey, it does look very cool, as does the design of these rear taillights. A lot of Chinese car fans joke that it wouldn't look out of place if you put a Mercedes badge on the back here. The rear trunk has no button for opening. You either walk up with the fob in your pocket or you hit the button on the fob, a cost-saving measure that I do not support. What I do support, however, is the size of this rear trunk. Very, very useful. Before we head inside to check out the interior, there's something else I want to show you guys under the hood of the Empow. You know how all these companies, they have to brand their power plants, right? Ford has EcoBoost, Geely has G-Power. What has Guangqi decided to call the engine underneath the hood of the Empow? 巨浪动力, which translates to mega wave power. That's the best name I've heard so far, for sure. The interior styling of the Empow is quite a match for the exterior styling. That means plenty of carbon fiber looking plastic on places like the center console here, as well as on the door panels, and a bold black and red color scheme. Overall, I think it's a great look. I love the integration of the 7-inch and 10.25-inch screens. Not much to mention there. The infotainment system itself works the way that it should, when it should, but not particularly innovative. What I really do like about this interior, however, is some of the ergonomics. The steering wheel, for example, is probably one of the best ones I've ever used at this price point. I like the shape of it, I like the size of it, I like the look of it as well. It's very nice to interact with. The same is true for the transmission shifter here. The shape of it is quite nice. It falls to hand very nicely. Another very important thing in an aspiring sports sedan is the seats. These seats have a nice bolster to them and also are comfortable for long rides. After all, some of the people who buy this car might use it for track days. I doubt it. But more than likely, they're going to be using it as their daily driver. So it needs to be able to do both things. Keep you in place when you're driving kind of aggressively, but also allow you to have a comfortable commute. This car is priced from $16,000 to $22,000 US. That makes it a full $10,000 cheaper than the cheapest version of the Lynk & Co. 03 Plus. As such, I don't have crazy high expectations for material quality, and I would say that it meets the expectations that I do have. That means there's some decent soft touch faux leather here in this nice strip of red, as well as soft touch upper dashboard. Other areas, other plastics, especially lower, are much more, well, cheap, and I'm not a big fan of the carbon fiber finish to the center console here in the door, but that's mostly just personal taste. Fit and finish wise, I've seen better at this price point here in China. There are certain areas where it's a little bit loose. It could be better. So acceptable, if not excellent. This being a daily driver, you're probably going to want to have passengers at some point, so their comfort is also quite important. Thankfully, I have good news, which is that the rear seats of the Empow are quite comfortable to be in. At least the two here. This one here has quite a large bump. Wouldn't want to be seated in the middle. The space is quite good. Now, I'm not a tall person. I would say I'm a pretty average height, at least where I'm from in the U.S., so about 5'9", or about 1.73, 1.74 meters tall. I also sit pretty close to the steering wheel, but I have plenty of space. Tall driver, tall passenger, you're going to have more trouble. The same is probably true for your head space. I'm pretty good to go, but if you were a taller person, this would probably be a tight fit. Speaking of headspace, looking above our heads, you see there's a lot of glass in this car. It has kind of a two-part glass roof, similar to what you would see in a Tesla Model 3, and I think it gives this car a much more premium feel. Other features are a single USB port here in the bottom. I would have liked to have seen two, of course, but one is better than none. And then, of course, your full-down center armrest with cup holders. I would describe my time with the Empow as something like a long-term romantic relationship. At first, it could absolutely do no wrong. I was completely charmed by the 1.5-liter Turbo 4 up front, specifically the sound of it. It sounded like no other modern 1.5 turbo that I'd ever heard. The power, too, while not overwhelming, 130 kilowatts, 270 newton meters of torque, about 177 horsepower and 200 pound-feet, 0 to 100 kilometers per hour, a little under 7 seconds. Quick in daily driving. Certainly plenty, right? The handling, too, it felt at first very flickable, light on its feet, much lighter than a lot of other modern sedans in this class that I've driven, particularly some of the electric ones, but that's another story. It seems then that I was in love. But then, as is often the case with relationships, the more I got to know it, the more I realized it wasn't quite as perfect as I thought it was. That sound that I really loved, turns out it was fake. The exhaust note is piped in through the speakers in here, and I have to admit, they didn't have that sound. You probably couldn't really hear it in the car. It sounds okay outside, but I kind of don't like the fact that they pipe in the fake noise. The handling, too, while it feels pretty light on its feet, the steering, it's not great. I like the steering wheel, but there's not a lot of feel, and even in the sportiest setting, it doesn't have a great deal of weight to it. It feels a little bit too light. The power delivery, the biggest weakness in the car is probably the 7-speed DCT. When you're driving it around town, it's perfectly acceptable, smooth shifts and everything, but when you really pound on it, when you really want it to give you a quick shift under hard throttle, it doesn't really deliver. But can you really have true love if you really don't know the person? Now that I know the good and the bad, I know the power's good, but I know the power delivery, it could be better with this transmission. The handling, the body control feels good. It feels light on its feet, but the steering definitely could be better. Can I still be in love with this car? The answer is yes. Even though it's not perfect, for around $16,000 to $22,000 US dollars, $10,000 less, at least, than a Lincoln Co. 03 Plus, there's still a whole lot to love about this car. Ultimately, I would say the Empow lived up to my expectations regarding its performance and other qualities. It definitely doesn't have the same power levels or performance levels as something like an 03 Plus, but at this price point, it is a seriously compelling package, and I have very much enjoyed driving it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to check us out on Instagram and Facebook, links in the description below. And as always, like, subscribe, and hit the bell.